All right, we're going to start looking at the Big Ten today. We're going Michigan, Purdue, Illinois, and who am I forgetting? Penn State. Pre-spring task list for each of those schools right after the stinger. Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. If your name was Moxley, that'd actually be pretty cool. For campus2canton.com, we're continuing our series where we look at teams in their pre-spring task list. If you didn't check out us covering the SEC, go ahead and search for those videos on the Campus to Canton YouTube page. While you're at it, if you're watching live, drop a like on this video. What else here? Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Pay attention to Good Morning Football in the morning. Nicholas Ian Allen, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, is doing a talk show at 10 a.m. Eastern about college football. And, of course, the Freshman Guide, the 2024 version, is available now. You can get it for $19.99 at the website or become a member at the scholarship tier, and you can get it as a part of your membership. But the Freshman Guide, that's where we find, Quinshon Judkins. What's some of our other hits? Quinshon Judkins, Raheem Sanders, guys like that who
Emmanuel Henderson.
Who?
Emmanuel Henderson. Rayshawn Luke, who we had much lower.
Well, we were down on Emmanuel Henderson. And so you can get our opinions and
Aiden Childs.
Aiden Childs hasn't done anything yet, though.
That's debatable.
So I was a big fan of Jordan James. He hasn't really broken out yet. He will in 2024. But you can get our positions on all of these players to get the Freshman Guide at the website. Before we get into the schools here, Chris, I want to talk about Nick Saban because for some reason he retired from college football and then went to Congress to snitch on everybody. What was your take on what he had to say?
Yeah, so he went in front of a group led by Ted Cruz, essentially talking about collegiate athlete legislation and what should be done about the path forward. His argument, or his semi-proposal, I guess is a better way to put it, is, and I'll quote him here, "I'm for student athletes being able to share in some kind of revenue. The number one solution is if we could have some kind of revenue sharing proposition that did not make student athletes employees." His argument was we need to retain some sort of control over these athletes because the transfer portal and kids are coming up to him at the end of every season saying, "Where's my money? Where's my playing time? What can you do for me?" And so he doesn't like that aspect. My take on it is good luck, first of all, because we just saw the Brett Kavanaugh decision. What was that, 2 years ago, where he said this is a flatly illegal model that you are operating. And if it wasn't college sports, you would be in big trouble. You cannot enforce a non-compete on non-employees. I don't understand that solution. And that's like Nick Saban living in a world where he like poops rainbows and butterflies, right? Like that is not reality. And I'm sure he wants it to be that way, but he didn't really add anything. He just said, yeah, I'm kind of sick of it. Thought it wasn't the real solution.
Doesn't Nick Saban have like multiple homes and his mansion is worth like $20 million?
He's worth at least $100 million through everything he does.
And he's got these Mercedes-Benz dealerships, but he goes to Congress to snitch on everybody else.
He's like, this guy wants $500,000 to play left guard for me. And that's where he's going to draw the line, right?
At two Brute. So I guess we'll keep paying attention to what Nick Saban is doing and who he's snitching on. It's going to be interesting. I've talked a little bit about the business of college football as the NIL era evolves. And I think we're going to see a big domino effect once we get the NCAA video game. I don't know how many times I have to say it, but it's a big difference when you hit that pan back so you can see your icon, your triangle, your X, your circle, and it's not wide receiver 81. It's going to be, Luther Burden, Tetaroa McMillan. You'll see Noah Fafita's name on the game. I think if you go back to like NBA Jam when we had two players and it just helped the NBA become visible. I think fantasy football helped the NFL become more visible. I think that the NCAA video game is going to help these players become more visible, more marketable. I'm at the gas station the other day, and It was actually during the season. Blake Corum is on the little screen at the gas station, promoting some water product or something like that. That's not something you would have seen 10 years ago. And I think it's going to be more common as these players' names get out there. Guys like Arch Manning, of course, Luther Burden, your guys that are going to be at Ohio State. Why are you shaking your head?
Because when you play with Texas this year and you zoom out, you're going to see QB number 16, not Arch Manning, because he refuses to be in the game.
Okay, in the comments, Arch Manning refused to be in the game. In the comments, give us your best Arch Manning alternative names. Your best Arch Manning alternative names.
I like Starch Manning. I don't know who came up with that one, but Starch Manning was pretty good.
I don't know why he think. First of all,
because he plays football on the field.
On football.
Yeah, he plays football on the field, not a video game. Yeah, that's our.
No, he said that he had to concentrate on football. All you have to do for that kind of stuff is sign a release. It doesn't prevent.
And you get like $500, $600. Yeah, not that it matters to Arch Manning, but I actually have an opinion on this that's pretty strong. You create a bigger distraction by being the only person that opts out of the game than opting in like everybody else. I just don't understand it unless you think that your brand is so much more valuable that you don't. And it might be that you are like the premier face of college football potentially. I don't know that that's true, but you think he's the most popular college football player on the planet?
He doesn't have any. He doesn't have any NIL deals, isn't that right? Or he has one?
He's one.
One, yeah, that the Manning family.
Yeah, but that's by choice. That's by choice.
I don't know that it's more. Bills. I don't know that it causes more of a distraction. I think his teammates probably look at him like, you think you're better than all of us. That's how they look at it. I don't know if it's a distraction. But
we've seen this. So Michael Jordan refused to be in NBA Jam. I mentioned that game earlier. The Ready to Rumble franchise for not Ready to Rumble, Fight Night, the Fight Night franchise for EA Sports. No Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, I think the only boxing game that Mike Tyson has been is that Mike Tyson Fight Night or whatever. Yeah, knockout. There are these athletes who understand their brand is probably bigger than the game, and Arch Manning is one of them. So he's actually right that his brand he's worth more than $600 in the video game. But
so is Caleb Williams, so is Drake May, so are all of these players.
But neither one of those guys are going to be in the game. If Caleb Williams is the type of player who would have opted out if he were going to be in college in 2024.
He might have because of his dad and family and all that.
True. So are all of these legends that they're supposedly bringing back, and all of them are coming back for, it sounds like, no money as well. So I don't disagree that his market value is more than $600 in a video game. That's not what it's about. I think you're actually alienating most of your fan base by doing this than not doing it, because people just look at you like you're a prima donna. That's I don't understand. They look at it.
I don't understand the decision. To be honest, and I think it was Cover 3 who was talking about it.
There's nothing to understand. He needed more money.
They were not going to give him.
I don't know. I don't even know that it was that. It was more like I don't remember who said it on Cover 3, and it was a really good point. And they said, "What happens when Quinn Ewers struggles?"
Yeah, and he comes in,
and people are posting on social media putting Arch Manning at QB1 and demoting Quinn Ewers,
and now they can't.
Now they can't. It's a problem.
You can't edit players, is what the report is, that you can't go in and create a Starch Manning. So it'll be
no. You can't go in and create Arch Manning. You will absolutely be able to create, Parch Fanning or something like that, and give him all the attributes. Who cares? Maybe he's quarterback 11 as opposed to 16. Yeah, there's going to be an Arch Manning character that's just like John Dowd. Just like John Dowd. Oh, Barry Bonds, another one. So. All right. Let's actually get into the schools here. I want to start with Penn State. So, of course, James Franklin stays as head coach, but he brings in Andy Kotelnicki. Did I pronounce that right, Chris? Kotelnicki? Yeah. From Kansas. He was with Lance Leipold both at Kansas and at Buffalo. So if you want to blame somebody for Jared Patterson not breaking the NCAA single game rushing record that game, if you remember that, you can blame Andy Kotelnicki. This is a team that loses Theo Johnson, the Detroit area tight end, Theo Johnson, Dante Cephas, freshman Christian Driver, who transferred away. I have no idea who Christian Driver is. This is a team whose roster is relatively in shape. They're 24th in the country in returning production, 6th in the Big Ten. They add transfers Julian Fleming, and freshman Luke Reynolds is coming in. He's really the main pass catcher that's coming in from Connecticut. He's like a top 5 tight end in this class, I believe. But kind of the same way it was last year, Matthew. I think that the question is can Andy Kotelnicki unlock Drew Aller when your leading receiver is Keandre Lambert-Smith, who had 673 yards last year, and Tyler Warren, who had 422? Like, there's no dog in this wide receiver room. Do you think Andy Kotelnicki can unlock this very, very talented Drew Aller?
I mean, it's hard to say because Drew Aller, I don't think it's unfair to say, is the most talented quarterback he's had at his time in Buffalo and Kansas. I mean, Jalen Daniels is a good quarterback. Drew Aller, I would say, arm talent-wise, is much better. I honestly don't know who the quarterback was they had at Buffalo off the top of my head. But if you go back and look at their offenses over the past couple of years, the highest pass success rate they had in their entire time at Buffalo and Kansas was actually last year, when Kansas had an incredible year with Daniels, and who took it? Was it Jason Bean, right? That came in when Daniels got hurt at quarterback for them, where they still only passed at 50% of the time. Now, their pass explosiveness was also 1.9, but with as exceptional as their quarterbacks were last year, their wide receivers were absolutely horrible. And that's also the problem I think you have here with Penn State. The highest grossing wide receiver points per game wise was 10 for a fantasy perspective. And we're talking, you just mentioned Julian Fleming coming in, never did anything at Ohio State. I don't think anybody in this room really gives you much to be excited about. So, like, that's where I think Aller might struggle. Like, I think he's got all the talent in the world, but you have to have weapons to unlock the quarterback. So I'll be the one, I guess, one part I'll be excited about with this offense is they do have an extremely good deep threat in Julian Fleming if he stays healthy. We've seen, I mean, he can get downfield. He's had the injury, he's had the issues with his hamstrings and everything. If he can get downfield, maybe we get to see Drew Aller air it out, though I still will be doubtful of that because James Franklin very famously in a press conference last year said, no, I don't ever want my quarterbacks to just say, hey, this dude's down there somewhere and throw it. So I would not be surprised if we don't see him really open it up at all. I'm standing firmly by my point that I said earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year, that Drew Aller needs to transfer somewhere else so he blows up and becomes a first-round draft pick, because it's not going to happen at Penn State.
I mean, it could happen at Penn State. Chris, can you give us your thoughts on Andy Kotelnicki and whether or not he's going to, get Drew Aller to his ceiling? By the way, I'm hoping that we're getting more people who are not, traditional college football fans watching this channel. Drew Aller, if you haven't seen him, the comp is Josh Allen because of his height, because of his arm talent. He's probably somewhere between Josh Allen and Ryan Mallett. So a larger pocket passer, but he's a kid that has legitimate first round NFL top 5 NFL arm talent. We just haven't seen his ceiling yet. Chris, can this offensive coordinator from Kansas bring out the best in him?
Yeah, I don't know that Penn State could have made a better hire, to be totally honest. Kotelnicki is one of the most creative play callers. Some will not use motion at all and are very traditional. He's the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, his offense revolves around moving players around consistently, like linemen are even in weird spots sometimes, and you see a ton of preset motion with wide receivers. I think if anybody's going to get Drew Aller going, it's going to be Kotelnicki. And I don't think Penn State has done him a big favor, is probably the right word, with how they've stacked their wide receiver room. But I think you see Julian Fleming, and if Julian Fleming can't stay healthy, I kind of agree with Matt that there's a field stretcher. There wasn't that last year. They did not have somebody to stretch the field. Drew Aller was forced to make throws under 10 yards almost every time. He didn't have the opportunity to stretch the defense. And I didn't think he looked good last year. I thought Drew Aller was terrible at times. Flat out, just didn't look like he could play the position. If anybody gets him going, I think it'll be Kotelnicki, though. I thought what he did at Kansas was super impressive, and he has better personnel at Penn State. And I know it's a upgrade in terms of schedule, but still, I think he's the guy if anybody's the guy.
I think he also got the best out of two quarterbacks there in both Daniels and Jason Bean. Chris, I want to come back to you. You're the tight end guy. Can I ask you about Tyler Warren? 6'6", 259. Is it outrageous to have him as a top 3 tight end in college football? By the way, people like Theo Johnson because what he did at the NFL Combine. Tyler Warren was the starter last year, and he's going into his senior season. He had 400 yards receiving last year. He was the second leading receiver on the team after Keandre Lambert-Smith. I feel like, the good tight ends we thought of are JT Sanders and Brock Bowers, but Ty Warren was a very good player in his own right last year.
Had a really good bowl game last year too against Ole Miss.
I'm surprised he didn't declare. That tells me the NFL isn't super interested in him. Because you would have thought that he would come out if the buzz was there, right? Because Theo Johnson came out. Theo Johnson had like no production whatsoever.
Right.
He's just a freak athlete from Canada,
which we knew.
Yeah, and
from the Detroit area,
from Canada. I don't honestly know what to think about Tyler Warren. I don't have a good read on his profile. I don't know that he's an NFL, like a starting NFL tight end. I do think he's a good college tight end. I think he'll be good again this year. I think Alex should be a big piece of that offense. I think Kansas used the tight end a lot last year in creative ways, and I think Warren can do that as well.
If anything, he has NFL size. We probably should bring up his athletic profile to see, if he has NFL athleticism. Matt, before we leave Penn State, let's go back to the backfield here between Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. After his freshman year, well, actually coming in as a freshman, if there was another player who could be like, Nick Chubb or kind of flirt with the first round after Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, I would have thought it was Nick Singleton. And then he took a step back last year and took a back seat to Katron Allen. Do you think that he could get back to kind of his freshman form where he was more explosive?
I do. I think a lot of that too last year with where Nick Singleton struggled was also how good Katron Allen was. I think that offense was poor. As Chris mentioned, Drew Allar was bad. The whole offense was bad last year. Like there was not any part of it that was really good. But as Chris and you've both talked about having Andy Kotelicki coming over here, where has he thrived? You mentioned at the beginning of the show, Jarrett Patterson, running back, Devin Neal was phenomenal last year with Kansas. He's had great running backs all throughout Buffalo as well. I think he's very good as a run game coordinator as well in calling that. So I think that is definitely going to help out Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. I was with you on him being that next guy as being a first-round pick. I do think that ship kind of sailed after what he did last year. I think even if he comes out this year and has an incredible year, he's probably more of a second-round pick. But I do expect him to bounce back in a major way. He's just so athletic, and I think that they will use him more, getting him outside where he thrived in high school, and we saw him thrive a lot as a freshman as well. Still, I think needs to improve a little bit in inside running, but I think overall he will have a really good year because of Kotelicki coming over.
He's a super athletic player, and if there is a running back in college football who could, again, flirt with the first round, I would still put Nicholas Singleton there. I don't think that there's anybody else who's, kind of capable of reaching that ceiling. I'm not saying Singleton is going to. I'm just saying if there is a player who would, I would give that shot to Singleton.
I think he may have been hurt last year too, for what it's worth. And they didn't,
and
he looked a lot better down the stretch than he did early on.
Yeah.
And he looked way more explosive. Like he did not look like the same player the first half of the season, the second half of the season. So I'm not willing to sell the fact that he can't be a first rounder right now. Because if he has the same season he has as a freshman, you're looking at scary comps in a good way.
Would you rather have Nick Singleton or Josh Jacobs, Matt?
Singleton. I mean, I know
a million years old.
Yeah, but he went to the Packers, but they still have AJ Dillon there. We've seen Matt LaFleur always kind of splits that backfield, even though Aaron Jones has had some really good. I think he was an RB1 for multiple years in a row, even dealing with some of the injuries. But I think Singleton's ceiling is higher overall, and I think when he comes in the NFL, he has a better chance of staying as an RB1 than Jacobs does.
I'm trying to think of another player here. So Austin Eckler just went to what? The Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Mox, would you rather have? I don't know. He's kind of old. He's very productive.
Dust. He's dust.
Yeah,
I just don't think he's very good anymore.
I actually have to Google NFL teams to, remember who the running backs are. Okay, DeAndre Swift just went to the
Bears.
Yeah, the Bears. Would you rather have DeAndre Swift or Nick Singleton if you could only roster one?
I think I'd rather have Singleton.
Question. I think I would rather have Singleton as well, but that's a little bit closer for me.
Okay. All right. There you have it. Matt, you have something else on Penn State before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just want to mention you brought up the tight end freshman that they have coming in. I do want to just say you guys need to look out for Ethan Grunkemeyer, the freshman quarterback that they brought in. In my opinion, had the best mechanics in this entire class. Very good arm velo as well. I think he's overall a very good freshman, a guy that could surprise. And if we see Drew Allard take that step forward, obviously there's a chance he doesn't go into the NFL next year. But I think Grunkemeyer will be the next guy up. I like Jackson Smolik next year. I think Grunkemeyer is much better than him. Much like Drew Allard can do some with his legs, but not really a rushing threat, but a very good pocket passing quarterback, a really good quick release, challenges tight windows all over the field. I think he could be the next guy up at Penn State. So again, if we see Allard kind of thrive in this offense, I think Grunkemeyer could be the next guy up, whether Allard leaves after this year or the next.
We do objectively.
Terrible name.
I mean, it's not great, yeah.
We do objectively measure recruits or prospects' arm velocity, and so you can get that data on Grunkemeyer in the 2024 freshman guide. Let's move on here to Michigan now. Of course, they had one of the bigger changes in college football, right after Alabama and Nick Saban. Jim Harbaugh just shredded this coaching staff here. Mike Hart is out. That he didn't actually follow. He did not follow Jim Harbaugh, but he is out. Tony Alford is in from Ohio State. That's weird to me. I don't remember the last time we had a Ohio State to Michigan. I feel like that doesn't happen a lot. Strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert is out. You got to remember, Michigan has not been a team that has recruited at an elite level. They've developed players. And when you talk about development, I mean, give some credit to Ben Herbert, your strength and conditioning coach there. So Justin Tress has been promoted to the strength and conditioning coach, and Tress had been with Ben Herbert since going back to Arkansas. Defensive coordinator Jesse Minter is out. And is Jay Harbaugh there? Did he follow Jim?
He didn't follow Jim. He went to Seattle, I think.
Yeah, he's with Seattle, the Seahawks.
Gotcha. They lose, of course, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, the entire offensive line. 90% of snaps and starts are out the door. This is a Michigan team with a new head coach that is 123rd in returning production, and I think they're close to last in the Big Ten. That would make sense. C.J. Stokes is out to Charlotte. They do add Josh Preby, I'm going to say Preby, left guard from Northwestern. He has played 36 games, 29 starts. They bring in Jaden Davis, one of the top quarterbacks in the class, but I am not particularly high on this quarterback class. I think when you look at Michigan, Matt, and I'll start with you, this is a team that's revolved around the running game. Since Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum, under Harbaugh, they've revolved around the running game. You got Donovan Edwards, West Bloomfield High School stand up. You got Donovan Edwards coming back. He's always been like a tweener. He's been a guy that they should utilize in the passing game, even though they don't. To me, the question is it Donovan Edwards? Is he the primary guy, or is he going to be splitting time with either Khalil Mullins, who for some reason, I feel like we saw him way too much in the championship game, or Benjamin Hall, the freshman or sophomore in 2024, Benjamin Hall, who really broke out in the spring game, and people got excited about him. Do you think that Donovan Edwards is going to be splitting time with one of these two, who appear to be more, interior grinders than Edwards is?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's where they use Blake Corum. I don't think that they're just going to turn around and give Donovan Edwards the run of this backfield and let him do everything. I think they recognize that he is an incredible receiving threat, but I think as a runner, he still has a lot left to be desired. He's just not really, in my opinion, improved that much even as a freshman. That people, me and you talked about it back when we used to do a college football nightly show after the season. A lot of people talked about that game where he carved up Ohio State, and you talked about how he not only was he running through wide open holes, but it was like a goal line defense.
There was no exactly right. Right.
So there was and he did it again the year after. So like, it's not a knock on him, but I think he is a phenomenal receiving threat. I just don't think he brings to the offense what a Benjamin Hall type does. So I would not be surprised 100% if they're splitting it. Now, is it like a 55-45 split? Maybe. I think personally they're going to rely heavily on the run this year. I do not think, I know we'll talk, I'm sure, about Alex Orji here in a minute. I don't know if they didn't trust JJ McCarthy in certain situations where rumors are he's going to be a first-round pick. I don't know how they're trusting Alex Orji in these games to be throwing the ball.
We got to talk about Alex Orji here in a second, but I see Mark in Michigan is in the chat. That could be the Mark in Michigan who used to make the covers for MFL teams back in the day. Mark in Michigan, let me know if that is in fact you there in the chat. You and I had a tiff on Twitter once. Okay, let's move on here. I guess actually before we get to that, Mox, do you think that Donovan Edwards is going to be a better NFL running back than college running back? Because he really is. He reminds me of, who is that running back for Sark, who went to the Baltimore Ravens? Javorius Allen. That is who Donovan Edwards reminds me of. Buck Allen. A pass catcher.
He could be. He is very limited in the run game. And I don't know what happened last year. I've heard different rumors, and I don't want to spread them on here, but there were rumblings behind the scenes about Donovan Edwards last year, whether it was injury or like stuff with the coaching staff. So I'm interested to see how he does this year. I do think that behind him, Mullings is obviously a really physical back, but a lot of the Michigan people have hyped up Benjamin Hall all offseason. So I'm pretty interested to see what he does.
I would bet that Benjamin Hall is rostered in just about every league, every C2C league, but Mullins is not. Mullins is also a senior, but he's also like 6'2", 229 or something like that.
Oh, he's big.
So he kind of fits the bigger back that Michigan wants to use, but neither one of these guys had more than like 70 carries last year. I think Benjamin Hall had like 30 something and Mullins had like right around 60 something or in that line. All right.
Mullins only had 36.
I said 30 something.
I thought you said 60 something.
No. Mullins had 60 something, I thought.
No, he had 36.
And Hall had 30. Oh, okay.
Hall had 15. They neither one of them really got the ball outside of the top two. And
I feel like Hall was touching the ball way more than that, or it was just my perception of the game.
But he had that spring game. Like, he was the MVP of the spring game. So,
yeah,
okay.
True.
We could be relying on that. All right. Of course, Michigan has to replace J.J. McCarthy, and I guess the leading candidate has to be Alex Orji, who got a lot of run last year, kind of as a rusher, as a wildcat quarterback type thing. Does somebody have the profile that we wrote on Alex Orji? That would have been 2 years ago now in the freshman guide.
We did not write up Alex.
Yeah, we didn't write him.
I told you that. Behind the scenes here. Check.
Yeah. If you check your phone, you would have known.
Check your phone, because Austin said something too. I can tell you about Alex Orji, but we did not write him up 2 years ago. We were a little bit more.
We didn't write him up once he flipped to Michigan, but we liked him. Okay,
we did. We did write him for the supplemental guide this year, though, for college fantasy. I think Chris K, who's in the comment section, wrote him up.
Do you want to tell us about him, Matthew?
Oh, I thought Chris was, because we
I thought you were. I was just providing.
I know him from his freshman profile. So here's what I will say. I think that he is a phenomenal runner. He's compared to guys like Jalen Milroe, Jalen Hurts as an athlete, incredible athlete. If you pull up his prospect database, I did earlier today. When I found out we were talking about Michigan, I'm almost positive Anthony Richardson is on there. I compare him very much to a Tim Tebow type quarterback, though. I do not think he is a good passer. When Austin said that we liked him, I'm kind of surprised, because I didn't. I don't think that he throws a very good touch. I think he tries to throw everything too perfectly. He doesn't know when to throw with speed, when to take something off. Maybe that's changed. Again, that was him coming out of high school. He has sat now for 2 years behind J.J. McCarthy. Maybe he's improved in the passing. I personally don't believe that he has. And the fact that when they brought him into games, they still mainly used him as a runner. Still could be very interesting for this offense with the running backs that they have. I think that the offensive line will be good. But overall, I personally don't think he's going to be that good for Michigan and that passing attack. And I do think he's going to be the one who wins a job because I looked at it earlier. And the only other player besides Jaden Davis, who is a true freshman, is, I believe, former 5-star Jack Tuttle, who is currently on his 7th year of eligibility. As a matter of fact, he was a 4th quarterback in the class behind Trevor Lawrence. So that's how long he's been in college. I don't think he's winning the starting quarterback job. So I think it is going to be Orji and probably Jaden Davis at some point as the QB2.
I disagree on who I think is going to win the job. I actually think it's going to be Jaden Denegal or player to be named later who is not on the roster currently, and they'll bring in post-spring. I think those are the two most likely. Denegal has 5 career pass attempts. Alex Orji has 1. Jack Tuttle has 199 over 6 seasons, 5.2 yards per attempt, and a 6-to-6 touchdown interception ratio. So none of these players are really experienced. So it would not surprise me if the Michigan quarterback is currently not on the roster. But Denegal had a lot of...
Or they do a split quarterback situation here.
And
that's what I was going to say.
They've done it already. I mean, they did it 2 years ago, Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy, right? Yeah. So but, I don't know that they'll want to do that again. I think I lean Denegal because I think he's a better passer than Orji is. But if they're going to lean into Orji, just say, hey, we want you to throw like 15, 20 times a game, or like even 10 to 15 times a game, they might. I mean, the offensive line has a lot of turnover. And like we talked about, they're losing the strength and conditioning coach. But Justin Tress, I think, basically is going to do a very similar job to what Ben Herbert did. So I'm not super worried about their strength and conditioning program. And they rotated a lot on the offensive line last year. I'm not totally worried about the rushing game yet.
All right. I mean, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, I think you have to roll with Orji because of how special he is as an athlete. Like, he just brings a different dynamic to that offense. He
has one pass attempt. And he has one pass attempt in 2 years.
Okay, and how many did JJ McCarthy have in the whole second half of that Penn State game?
JJ McCarthy played in the national championship game.
I know that. My point is, they have no fear of just relying on this running game and defense. And outside of Texas, who they play early, they don't have a tough schedule. I don't think USC is really going to challenge them. They play Fresno State, and I think it's Arkansas State at the beginning of the season. Like, they don't have any tough games until this. It's not going to load up for me, but they don't have a tough schedule. So I think that they do roll with Orji. Maybe they do the split backfield or the split quarterback thing. I think that Orji is going to be the guy.
Can I ask y'all a question? The Michigan-Texas spread opened at 2.5. Texas is favored. Which way you going?
I'm taking Texas to cover that easily.
Whoops them.
I think I do too.
I do too. I think it's
even in the big house
on FanDuel.
Even in the big house.
I think that line should be like 5.5 or something like that.
I made it 4.5. So yeah, you're before a field goal. Just a little free nugget for y'all.
I've come a long way on understanding betting lines. I mean, 3 years ago.
Why is the minus next to this team?
Yeah. All right. Let's move on here to Purdue. Purdue still has head coach Ryan Walters. It's so weird to see some of these players who I watched play in college. Graham Harrell is the offensive coordinator. Chris, you put a note in here regarding the tight ends coach. Of course you did. You're the only person who would.
I thought it was interesting that Seth Doege left to go be the offensive coordinator at Marshall, older brother of Jared Doege.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jared Doege, who transferred from West Virginia to Western Kentucky, and everybody was drafting Jared Doege way too high 2 years ago in drafts, and he ended up not getting the job, losing out to Austin Reed.
He's in the CFL right now.
He's in the CFL?
Yeah, I think he plays for the Eskimos.
There we go. Purdue loses Tyrone Tracy. Is this the same Tyrone Tracy who was a wide receiver as a freshman at Iowa?
Yeah.
Because I think that he's actually converted to a running back position. I think that he's a pretty good player. They also lose Deion Burks, who goes to Oklahoma, TJ Sheffield to Michigan State. Abdur Rahman Yassin, a safety, is headed to Florida. Shout out to Belleville. I really like Deion Burks. We'll have to talk about him when we talk about Oklahoma. He's got a little bit of DJ Moore to his game. They bring in Reggie Love from Illinois, part of that Brett Bielema backfield last year, the last couple of years. Wide receiver Cam Brown from UCLA, wide receiver CJ Smith from Georgia, offensive lineman Corey Stewart and DJ Wingfield. Mox, only Mox. So Mox is, Stewart is a left tackle from Ball State, and of course, Chris Moxley, which is why I love you. You actually think he's a pretty decent player?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a power forward quality. Even if he's not playing left tackle, I think he could play guard at a pretty high level too. He's good. He's a couple accolades from the MAC too.
Purdue loses their top 4 wide receivers in yards and routes run. They lose 73% of their total receiving yardage. Is that receiving yardage or yardage total?
Receiving yardage.
Redshirt sophomore Max Clark is the leading receiver who is not a transfer in. So they're losing a lot there.
We like him too.
We do like Max Clark?
Yeah, assuming he's healthy. I think he had a season-ending injury in early October, mid-October. But assuming that he's healthy, we think he's a pretty good player. We liked him last year too.
Okay, I got to add him to my rankings. I got to take a look at him. When I saw that he was a sophomore, it intrigued me. But he's a redshirt sophomore. He'll be a redshirt sophomore in 2024, so a third-year player. We've seen a lot of Reggie Love at Illinois. Devin Mockabee has his own fans. Matt or Chris, either one of you take this. I don't know if there's a position that we care about on this team. It's the running back position between these two.
Sure, if we care about, yeah.
Sure, go ahead, Chris. Yeah, I mean, I semi disagree with that's the only position we care about. But go ahead, Chris. Tell us why we should care about one of these running backs.
Like you said, Devin Mockabee has his fans. I am not one of them. I think Reggie Love is a fine player. I don't know that he's more than like an RB2, 3 on a Big Ten team, and that's probably why he was brought in, just to provide depth, because they lost a lot via the portal. So, yeah, but I mean, it's a tough schedule. Like, Purdue is not going to overwhelm you, especially losing multiple offensive linemen. I don't know that the Graham Harrell offense is conducive to running back production either. So I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion. I think the only position that we care about on this team is tight end, to be honest. But they lost their tight ends coach. So
quarterback Marcos Davila is in our last tier. Say it again.
Davila
is in our last tier. He's a little stocky, 6'2", 240, a pure pocket passer from Texas, from division, I can't remember which day. Texas high school football, pure pocket passer. Probably not somebody that you're going to roster at all until we see something from him. But he's not going to be a CFF option, not being a rushing threat.
He's got a big arm.
Disagree.
Yeah, he's got a nice arm, but his accuracy kind of sucks.
Oh, I mean, that's true. Matthew, you wrote the profile on him.
I did write the profile. I am actually fairly excited for him because of what Chris just said with the Graham Harrell offenses, where we don't really want the running backs. We want the wide receivers or possibly the tight end. I mean, he just got, was it Neil Brown, right? That's West Virginia's. He just got Neil Brown an extension with West Virginia because he had their best offense in over the past couple of years with their pass success rate, pass explosiveness. Davila can stretch the field. He's got an incredibly strong arm. Now, yes, he does struggle with accuracy. He completes just 59% of his passes and doesn't always show good ball placement. But I think he has the gunslinger mentality where he will throw the ball anywhere on that field, and he can make those throws. If he gets the volume, which I think he could in the Graham Harrell offense, especially with the fact they'll probably be down in a lot of games, I actually think he's a sneaky CFF option if he's got to improve a little bit on the accuracy. 59% ain't going to get it done for you, but he's not going to be a QB1 because you're right. He doesn't have any rushing upside, but could he be a QB 24-ish? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, when I said you're not going to roster him, I mean like in 2024 freshman and supplemental drafts, this is not a player that you're drafting.
I mean, I might take him in the 15th round. You're probably right.
You're
probably right.
He's more interesting in a CFF Dynasty League.
Okay.
That's the type of draft that I think you can take him in.
I mean, it depends on the league you played. If you're playing in a league like some of us play in, where I forgot the name of it, the League of Record, where
36 teams.
Yeah, or you're playing in an Austin Nace special,
58
teams and 30 defensive players, and you start 6 quarterbacks. He's a guy you're drafting. But no, like even in the
He's
League
probably
of
first
Record,
round pick in that kind of draft.
Yeah. In the League of Record, which we're all in with a lot of very sharp CFF guys, there's not a lot of CFF options on there. He might be a guy that I would be willing to take a shot on in the 15th. Hudson Card's done after this year. There's no way he's got any eligibility left. I don't think he's that good anyways. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Marcos on the field at some point this year anyways, with how bad Purdue's likely going to be. So maybe he's a guy you take in the 15th round. If you don't like him, you cut him after week 3 to pick up the hot running back off the waiver wire.
We're at the tail end of some of these players who had 2020 COVID eligibility, like Hudson Card. Hudson Card was he in Bryce Young's class? I feel like he was in Bryce Young's class, or maybe even the class before that. So, all right, let's move on to Illinois here. We'll finish out the night with Illinois. Brett Bielema still had the head coach. Barry Looney Jr. still the offensive coordinator. Wide receiver George McDonald is headed to Ole Miss. I mean, okay. They lose John Paddock. How's that a big loss? I mean, what wide receiver other than Isaiah Williams did Illinois have the last couple of years?
I thought he did a good job developing wide receivers. I mean, you got to think about what he was given at Illinois.
And he was given a quarterback in Isaiah Williams and turned him into a wide receiver.
And Ole Miss, who is hiring everybody with their money right now, targeted him. I think that speaks volumes to what the job that he was able to do with very limited resources.
Okay, see, I just set you up to make the rebuttal. That's what I was doing there. That's what a host is supposed to do. Illinois loses John Paddock, who subbed in for Luke Altmaier last year. They lose the aforementioned Isaiah Williams and Casey Washington. Tip Ryman, left tackle Julian Pearl, right tackle Isaiah Adams, and defensive tackle Johnny Newton, who I voted for the player of the week 1 week. And the bureaucracy behind the scenes at Campus to Canton didn't allow us to anoint Johnny Newton as player of the week. Of course, Reggie Love has transferred out. Transferring in is left tackle J.C. Davis from New Mexico. And I think the question here is Keaton Fagan, like, where should we have him ranked? And is he like a hidden gem in college football, Matt? What are you laughing about?
Because that just made me the trade on Rudolph. It's Caden Fegan, not Keaton Fagan.
Keaton Fagan. I just said it again.
We got a new creative player.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of his. I was a fan of his since his senior season in high school.
Okay. Can I interject real quick? Do you know how? Speak to the audience. Felix determines who he is a fan of. He goes into the database and sorts by weight for each class. That's what he does. Caden Fegan weighs what, like 240?
Yeah, something like that. I think he's like 6'2", 230 something, 240. Yeah,
that's not true. That's not true. I looked for NFL size and NFL athleticism at that size. That's what I look for. And Caden Fegan, who played defensive end, quarterback, safety in college, in high school, excuse me. He has not been a full-time running back until his freshman year at Illinois. Very athletic player. I was kind of worried about his physicality because he didn't really play running back. He is a bigger player, 6'2", 240, who doesn't – I mean, he kind of reminds you of Braylon Allen in that sense. But Braylon Allen, a very good player, is probably going to go on day 3 in the NFL. Somebody talked here about Caden Fegan. Do you like him? Do you not? We saw flashes from him in 2023.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to be an absolute monster in this offense. I mean, we saw what Chase Brown was able to do a couple years ago. I don't think got quite that good of an athlete, but he's incredible. Is it Josh McCray is in that room, who I don't think is anything special.
Who also had a great freshman season, Josh McCray.
He did
until hurt all the time, too.
Yeah, he gets hurt all the time, exactly. So there's nobody else there. I mean, if they rely on him the way they have their running backs over the past couple of years, I think he has a chance to be an absolute stud, and I think he continues to impress. I think he has a chance to go. Pulling a Colin Decker here, day 2 in a couple of years. I think Braylon Allen goes day 2, by the way. But I think with how good of an athlete is, I mean, one of his top comps in our database is Matt Forte. I mean, I don't think he's that good of a pass catcher, but I mean, he's that good of an athlete.
He is that good of an athlete. He's very. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
He I was gonna say he's listed as 6'3", 250 on the Illinois website.
Jeez.
So
big boy.
that is a thick boy.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you see 6'3", 250, you're expecting that player to play like Derrick Henry. He is not. He's not a player that linebackers are going to be scared to come up and tackle. He just doesn't play that physically, at least not yet.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Is that something that you can improve on, or is it more of a mentality aspect where like you have it or you don't?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think that he's going to be a good case study for it because he's athletic enough to generate like the velocity to run through tacklers. And maybe if he does it a few times and he gets the confidence, Caden Fegan, that is, we can see more of that running style from him. But I mean, the dude was playing quarterback in high school. You know who else played quarterback in high school? Joique Bell. Joique Bell coming out of Wayne State, Benton Harbor High School, the Detroit Lions running back. He was also that's a good comp for Caden Fegan, actually, I believe. So maybe you can learn it. Maybe you can learn it.
Some of his comps are pretty interesting. I know we mentioned Matt Forte, but Rashad Jennings is a really interesting
that's a good
one too.
Rashad Jennings was also like an upright runner, and
like they play pretty similarly. I kind of like that comp.
I cannot talk about Illinois without talking about Cal Swanson. I was a big fan of Cal Swanson coming out last year as a freshman. He shows a lot of impressive traits. I think he was 4th in last year's class as far as velocity goes. And part of the problem with his recruitment is that his team was not very good. His team was not very good. And when I say that, I mean like instant pressure coming off as soon as he hikes the ball and he's trying to get the ball out of his hands. And he often would. Sometimes he would scramble and get a pass off to a wide receiver. There's a little wide receiver that I saw drop so many passes on his high school tape. But Cal Swanson can run. He's aggressive. He can throw. He's an aggressive passer. He has, again, objectively, like his mile per hour on his fastball was up there. And I feel the same way I feel about Cal Swanson is how I felt about Thomas Castellanos coming out of Ware County, Georgia. It is. That's a good comparison.
It is.
I was talking about Thomas Castellanos coming out of Ware County. He ends up being, a very good player for Boston College after 1 year at UCF. I feel the same way about Cal Swanson. So I would watch out for Cal Swanson at Illinois. And by the way, I believe in – so Cal Swanson played in the shotgun system. He has a dual threat ability to him. Brett Bielema, that's not usually his type of quarterback. So it's going to be an interesting mesh to see if Cal Swanson stays there and how Brett Bielema uses him, because he does have some rushing ability.
I like Cal Swanson too, for what it's worth. I think he is a player who I think could get on the field, because I didn't think Luke Altmaier was very good last year. So will they turn to him as quarterback too? Even though it always worries me when there's a disconnect between who the starter is and the backup is in terms of play style. I don't think they're very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'd like to see him if Altmaier struggles. Like we saw John Paddock come in and like he was great, but I mean, it's not the same player.
If there's a player that I'm watching for in the spring game for Illinois, I'd be trying to see, because I would expect Cal Swanson to be leading one team. So he's probably going to play a half of football or more. And then Luke Altmaier on the other one. So we should see quite a bit of Cal Swanson. So
I have him as my potential transfer out after spring.
You think so? I don't think he's ready to. I mean, he's not necessarily ready to play as a second-year player.
I know he committed to Illinois, but would it shock you?
He had no other FBS offers. All of them were FCS offers.
That's
Illinois
crazy. I
was
thought Gus Malzahn would be offering him out the wazoo.
So he came from like Kansas or Oklahoma or something like that, and none of those schools. Oklahoma didn't offer him. Texas obviously didn't offer him. It was one of those states there where Oklahoma and Texas kind of roam. And Illinois was his only FBS offer. But again, the team around him was, I think they finished 6-7 or something like that his last year. So, just not on a very good football team, but very good individual player. Now he will take some risks. He took some risks in high school because, he didn't have a lot of talent around him. But yeah, I mean, you can, I've got Cal Swanson tape all around my Twitter feed. So you can just search his name and mine, and you'll see those videos come up. Of course I did.
Just want to point out, we did have Caden Fegan at 21 miles per hour, just to kind of point out how good of an athlete he is at
250 pounds. Yeah, he's a good player. He's a top 20 running back in college football, at least in my opinion, especially in that system. Okay. Anything else?
No,
all right, folks, subscribe to the channel. Like the video. We really appreciate it. When you like this video, you are voting for college fantasy. You're voting for college fantasy to become normalized in the public discourse. All right. We appreciate it. Peace, y'all.